Princess Charlotte quietly boarded a plane, but not as the royal the world knows. In a clever disguise, she blended in with other teens, unnoticed by most. But one sharp-eyed flight attendant sensed something strange. What happened next shocked the passengers. Soon all of England was talking. Why was Charlotte flying undercover? What did the flight attendant do that caused such a stir? Charlotte had always played by the rules. Every move, every outing, every word was carefully managed. Royal life was full of structure and full of limits. But now that she was getting older, things started to change. She saw her classmates living normal lives, going to the mall, having sleepovers, traveling with their families on holidays, and Charlotte, wondering what it felt like to just be normal. Her best friend Asa had recently moved to Scotland, used to see each other every day, but now they could only chat briefly at lunch or exchange messages through teachers. Charlotte missed her more than anything. She wanted to visit her over the school holidays, but royal protocol would never allow it. That's when she came up with a plan, a secret one. No palace cars, no bodyguards, no media. Just one simple trip. Charlotte wanted to experience a sliver of freedom, to be a regular girl for just one moment. She would fly to Scotland alone, undercover. She knew it had to be perfect. If anyone found out, the consequences would be huge. Charlotte started by ditching her usual royal look. No dresses, no polished shoes. Instead, she picked out jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. Her hair was tied back under a baseball cap. She looked like any other teenager heading off on a trip. She used saved-up pocket money to book a commercial flight, no royal jet this time. To stay hidden, she didn't use her full name. Instead, she booked under Charlotte Wales. She even chose a budget airline, hoping it would help her blend in better. Her backpack was light, just a few snacks, a book, her phone. She reached out to Ace's mom using a school tablet, quietly explaining her plan. Ace's mom agreed to meet her at the airport. Charlotte felt a flutter of nerves, but mostly excitement. She told her teachers she had a study session, then slipped out through a side door at school. Her heart raced as she stepped onto the plane. A thrill ran through her. She had done it. Her adventure had begun, but she had no idea what was coming. One observant flight attendant was about to unravel everything. Charlotte's quiet escape was about to make headlines. Charlotte stepped off the bus and took in the sights and sounds of the busy airport. People were everywhere pulling suitcases, checking phones, calling out goodbyes. Ow. She clutched her small backpack and followed the signs to check in, her heart pounding with nervous excitement. No one noticed her. That gave her confidence. At the check-in desk, she handed over her ticket and quietly gave the name Charlotte Wales. The airline worker smiled and printed her boarding pass. No special treatment, no second glances. It felt normal. She made her way to security. There she placed her backpack, shoes, and phone into a tray and walked through the scanner. The guard waved her forward without a word. She was in after that. Charlotte wandered the terminal. She sat in the food court and ate a sandwich alone, watching the buzz of travelers. Some were in a rush, others leaned back with coffee, scrolling through their phones. She browsed a few airport shops, touched a soft scarf, and smiled at a group of teens laughing nearby. For the first time in a long while, Charlotte felt like one of them, just a regular girl. When her boarding group was called, she joined the line with everyone else, holding her ticket tightly. The gate agent scanned it with a beep and waved her through. She was really doing this. Down the tunnel and onto the plane. Charlotte found her window seat and settled in. A woman was already in the middle seat. She had a calm presence and gave Charlotte a kind smile. "I'm Emma," she said warmly. "Heading to Edinburgh for work?" Charlotte returned the smile. "I'm Charlotte. Visiting a friend." Soon a young man took the aisle seat. He introduced himself as Jake, a university student going home for break. Both passengers seemed easygoing and friendly. They chatted lightly, books, favorite places, funny school stories. Emma offered Charlotte a piece of gum. Jake showed her photos from a recent hiking trip. No one stared, no one whispered to them. She was just another teenage girl. The seat was a bit cramped. Her knees bumped the tray in front of her, but Charlotte didn't mind. She looked out the window, heart full. No cameras, no guards, no rules, just freedom. She didn't know it yet, but her perfect plan was already starting to unravel. The conflict begins at first. Everything felt like a dream. Charlotte leaned her head against the window, munching on a cookie she'd packed. The hum of the engines, the view of the clouds, the easy conversation around her all felt peaceful. Later, when she started feeling a bit hungry again, she waited for the flight attendants to roll down the cart. When they reached her row, she gave a polite smile and asked, "Excuse me, may I have another snack, please?" The attendant, a woman named Rebecca, didn't return the smile. She narrowed her eyes and replied curtly, "Wait like everyone else." Her voice was cold, clipped, like Charlotte had broken some unwritten rule. Confused and a little embarrassed, Charlotte sat back quietly. She didn't understand what she'd done wrong. Emma gave her a gentle look but didn't say anything. Jake glanced over, sensing the tension. Charlotte tried to brush it off. Maybe the attendant was just having a bad day. But then she noticed something strange. Rebecca kept glancing back at her, not just once. Repeatedly, her eyes lingered too long. She whispered to another crew member and nodded subtly. Toward Charlotte's row, that warm, safe feeling began to fade. Charlotte's heart started to race. Someone on the plane was watching her closely, and they weren't buying the disguise later in the flight. The sun beamed directly through Charlotte's window. She squinted and turned to Rebecca, the flight attendant, with a quiet voice. "Excuse me, could I please lower the shade? It's really bright." Rebecca gave her a hard look. "Deal with it." "Busy," she snapped, not even slowing down. Charlotte blinked, stunned by the response. She looked down at her hands and stayed quiet. A few minutes passed. Charlotte reached for her juice, but the cup slipped from her tray and spilled. She gasped and scrambled for a napkin before she could clean it up. Rebecca appeared. "You're clumsy. Watch what you're doing," she barked, snatching the tray away. Charlotte felt her cheeks flush. She nodded silently, trying not to cry. The mood had shifted. She was no longer invisible. She was being singled out. Feeling chilly, she gathered her courage again. "Could I have a blanket, please?" she asked. Rebecca crossed her arms. "This isn't a hotel, you know." Every word from her was sharper than the last. No matter how softly or politely Charlotte spoke, Rebecca's tone remained cold. At one point, the attendant even muttered under her breath, "Spoiled teenagers." Nearby, passengers began to glance over. Emma gave Charlotte a concerned look. Jake frowned, clearly uncomfortable. Subtle tension was spreading. Then the plane hit a pocket of turbulence. It wasn't serious, just enough to make things rattle. Phone slipped from her lap and landed in the aisle. She quickly leaned down to grab it before it slid too far. At that moment, Rebecca walked by with a tray of drinks. She stumbled slightly, but caught herself before falling. Her eyes locked on Charlotte. "You're always in the way," she snapped loud. Enough for half the cabin to hear. Charlotte sat up quickly, phone in hand, and said nothing. Her face was pale. Rebecca didn't move on. Instead, she stood still in the aisle, arms stiff at her sides. "What kind of home do you come from?" she said. "Don't you know how to act on a plane?" Charlotte felt her throat tighten. Her fingers curled around the edge of the seat. "I just wanted to be normal," she whispered. Rebecca scoffed. "Normal? You're acting like some little princess who thinks the world owes her something." The cabin went silent. Emma stared at Rebecca in disbelief. Jake leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "That's not okay," he said. A man a few rows back called out, "She's just a kid. Leave her alone." Charlotte turned back to the window, her eyes watery. She wiped them with her sleeve, trying to hold it together. She had wanted this trip to be a breath of freedom. No rules, no titles, just a girl visiting her friend. Now, all of that joy was slipping away, and she had no idea. The worst part was still to come. Her secret was about to be exposed, not by choice. Emma couldn't stop thinking about the girl in the window seat. There was something familiar about her, the way she carried herself, the quiet way she spoke, even the way she folded her hands in her lap. Then it hit her. She had seen that face before. Maybe on TV, maybe in a magazine, or a royal charity segment. Her heart skipped Princess Charlotte. Could it really be? Emma didn't say anything out loud. It was clear Charlotte had gone through great effort to stay unnoticed. Step 2 looked like a regular teenager. But Emma couldn't ignore the way Rebecca had been treating her sharply. Dismissively, without a trace of kindness, Emma made a quiet decision. She opened her phone and began recording, holding the camera low on her lap. She didn't film Charlotte directly, just the interactions. The footage showed Rebecca moving past Charlotte without care, speaking to her in a cutting tone, while Charlotte remained still, gazing out the window with quiet dignity. On the other side of Charlotte, Jake had noticed too. He leaned in slightly and whispered, "She looks like someone important." Emma gave him a quick nod. "I think she is." They both realized the same thing. Charlotte wasn't looking for attention. She wasn't asking for special treatment. She just wanted one simple, normal day. Emma kept filming, not to expose Charlotte, to expose the way she had been treated. Because no one deserved that, not even a princess, and especially not a girl just trying to feel normal. She felt a wave of sadness watching Charlotte sit there in silence, holding back tears, trying to disappear into the background. But help was coming. Someone would listen now. Media explosion and immediate response, and as the plane touched down and passengers began gathering their things, Emma opened her phone. She didn't hesitate. She uploaded the video, carefully edited so that Charlotte's face wasn't clear. Caption read, "Young royal treated poorly by airline staff. No one deserves this. #, Princess Flight." The video focused on Rebecca, the harsh tone in her voice, the dismissive hand gestures, the way she towered over a quiet, polite girl who never raised her voice. Every second spoke volumes. Jake posted a short message on his school's social page. "Sat next to a girl today who just wanted to visit a friend. She stayed kind even when treated unfairly. She didn't act entitled. She didn't fight back. She just tried to enjoy the trip. We need to be better to each other." He didn't mention names either, but people started putting the pieces together. Within an hour, the video had thousands of views. By the time Charlotte stepped off the plane and followed the quiet path toward baggage claim, the #, Princess Charlotte flight was trending worldwide. Some viewers pointed out her resemblance to Charlotte. Others matched her soft voice too. A clip from a past royal interview. Few compared her mannerisms to her mother's. The theory spread fast. The story grew louder. Comments poured in. "No way, that has to be her. Why is she traveling alone? She was so respectful. That flight attendant should be ashamed. Protect this girl at all costs." Even people who had been on the same flight started sharing their own photos and stories. Some had noticed Charlotte, but kept it quiet out of respect. Now, they felt compelled to speak up. By the time Emma landed and checked her notifications, again, news outlets were already reaching out. Headlines popped up online. Was Princess Charlotte harassed on a commercial flight? Viral video sparks outrage over airline staff behavior. Teen royal travels solo and stays graceful through it all. Within hours, the palace was trending. So was Charlotte. But what stood out most wasn't just her identity, was her quiet strength, her refusal to cause a scene, and the heartbreaking words she had whispered when no one was supposed to hear. "I just wanted to be normal." Emma had recorded the moment to help a girl who'd been mistreated. She had no idea. She was about to start a conversation that would reach every corner of the world. Not long after the posts went live, story exploded. Major media outlets quickly picked it up. Some shared the original video, while others wrote articles praising the girl's quiet bravery. It didn't take long for people to connect the dots. The girl in the hoodie seat 1 for I.O. was very likely Princess Charlotte. The royal office found out almost immediately. Panic swept through the halls. No one had authorized her travel. The protection team was shocked and then activated. Phones lit up across departments. Within minutes, they were coordinating with the airline to confirm her location and ensure she was safe. British Airways saw the trending hashtag and incoming calls at the same time. Managers huddled. Situation was delicate. This wasn't just about poor service anymore. It was a national scandal in the making. A young royal had slipped through the cracks, and worse, she had been mistreated by a member of their staff. Public response was swift. Parents across the country posted messages saying that no, young girl, royal or not, should ever be treated like that. Royal fans rallied behind Charlotte, praising her grace under pressure. Even people who didn't usually follow the monarchy commented on her composure and strength. The hashtag Princess Charlotte flight continued to trend. It wasn't just a story. Any merit was a movement. Realization at 30,000 feet back on the plane, the crew began hearing whispers. A passenger showed a flight attendant the video making its way around social media. It was unmistakable. Rebecca's voice, sharp and cold, as she dismissed the quiet girl in 14A. The crew began to gather around phones, watching in disbelief. One attendant, pale-faced, rushed to inform the captain. Within minutes, he was on the radio, contacting ground control. "We believe Princess Charlotte may be on board. There's a situation. Prepare a response team on arrival." Attention spread. Like static, Rebecca kept doing her rounds, until someone pulled her aside and whispered the news. She blinked, confused at first, and then scoffed. "No, that's not no way." But then she looked again, really looked. Her face drained of color. She realized it was true. Everything clicked into place, the manners, the quiet tone, the sadness in Charlotte's eyes. Rebecca said nothing. She simply sat in the crew's jump seat, silent and pale. The rest of the team didn't speak to her. The cabin felt different, now charged, fragile. Everyone waited for the descent. Landing and aftermaths the plane touched. Down in Edinburgh, the atmosphere was heavy with silence. Charlotte sat still, her small backpack held close to her chest. She hadn't said much in the final hour of the flight. Her window view had become her shield. Emma and Jake remained close by, offering quiet comfort. They didn't try to talk. The calm presence said enough. At the gate, members of the Royal Protection Team waited in plain clothes. Their expressions were unreadable, trained, composed. When Charlotte stepped out of the jet bridge, they approached her slowly, not with alarm, but with quiet respect. They nodded gently. They knew no scolding, no panic, just understanding. Charlotte followed them. Without resistance, she looked tired, but steady. Just outside the security area, Illa's family waited. Her friend's mother spotted her first and rushed forward with a warm smile. Charlotte's eyes softened. For a brief second, she was just a kid, again greeted with kindness, not headlines. She gave a small, grateful smile as she stepped into their embrace. Behind her, airport staff and royal agents handled the rest. Rebecca was quietly escorted away. British Airways' legal team was already reviewing internal procedures. A statement was being written before the seatbelt, signs even turned off. The quiet flight Charlotte had planned had become the loudest story in the world, and she didn't even know the full scale of it yet. But the world was watching. And for once, they weren't watching a princess. They were watching a brave young girl who just wanted one normal day at first. The scene outside arrivals was warm. Charlotte's friend's family had come with open arms and bright smiles, ready to greet her. But as they stepped closer to the exit, their expressions changed. A wall of flashing cameras waited beyond the glass doors. Reporters had already gathered at the airport. News vans lined the curb. Microphones were raised. Photographers leaned over railings. Everyone wanted a glimpse of the girl in the hoodie, now known to the world as Princess Charlotte. Illa's parents looked overwhelmed. They hadn't expected this. No one had. What was supposed to be a quiet reunion had become a media event. Inside the terminal, British Airways staff moved swiftly. Becca was pulled aside and escorted to the employee area. A manager informed her firmly but professionally that she was being placed on leave pending a full review. Rebecca sat in silence, stunned. Her face pale, her hands covering her forehead. She finally understood what had happened, and how badly she had misjudged the girl in seat 14A. The apology and the outrage later that evening. The CEO of British Airways stood in front of a cluster. of cameras outside the company's London office, didn't hide from the questions. "We are aware of the situation," he said. "We are reviewing all available footage and speaking to staff and passengers involved. What happened on that flight does not reflect the values of our airline." He paused, then added with visible seriousness, "Every passenger, no matter their name, age, or background, deserves respect and kindness. We will do better," he ended with a direct apology, to Charlotte, to her family, to the public. The statement was clear. British Airways knew they had to fix the damage and fast. As the CEO spoke, the world was already responding. Messages of support for Charlotte flooded the internet. People from around the globe praised her calmness and strength. "She was just a girl trying to travel," one user wrote. "And she handled it with more grace than most adults would." Many parents shared their own stories about their children, growing up under pressure, about how important it is to let kids make small mistakes, take small risks, and learn about the world on their own. Others were furious about Rebecca's behavior. "How do you treat a child like that?" One comment read, "It's your job to be patient, especially with young passengers." Charlotte had hoped to stay hidden. Her story gave people something real to talk about, something that went beyond royalty or fame. The cameras were rolling, the headlines were everywhere, and the world watched in awe of the brave young girl who simply wanted to feel normal for a day. But the biggest surprise was still to come. Once the truth was confirmed, action came swiftly. British Airways responded immediately. Rebecca, the flight attendant at the center of the incident, was removed from duty pending an internal investigation. Days later, she was formally dismissed. The airline released a public statement apologizing to Princess Charlotte and the public. "No passenger, regardless of age, background, or name, should ever be treated with disrespect. We failed to meet our own standards. We're deeply sorry." They didn't stop there. The airline announced a full review of staff protocols and launched a new training program focused on compassionate service, empathy, and situational awareness. They also implemented a discrete system for identifying high-profile or vulnerable passengers, not for special treatment, but to ensure their dignity and safety in a world that's always watching. Charlotte speaks out days later. Charlotte gave a quiet interview through the palace. It wasn't flashy. There were no lights or microphones, just her voice. "I didn't want anything special," she said softly. "I just wanted to feel like everyone else for one day. I didn't expect perfect service, just kindness." Her words moved people. It was the honesty of a young girl who wasn't trying to make a statement, but ended up making one anyway. Prince William and Princess Kate also spoke publicly, expressing hope that their children could still have small, simple moments away from public eyes. "We support our daughter's independence and her heart," William said. "Every child deserves room to grow." Rebecca's apology and grows surprisingly. Rebecca also came forward. In a handwritten letter shared through a local news outlet, as she wrote, "I was overwhelmed and let my stress speak louder than my compassion. I'm truly sorry for how I behaved. I let down a young girl, and I let down myself. I've learned from my tand. I want to be better." Her actions had consequences. She lost her job. But she didn't walk away unchanged. In time, Rebecca began working with a nonprofit that trains travel staff in emotional intelligence and customer care. She now speaks to new recruits about how one careless moment can affect a life, and how one kind gesture can change it for the better. Charlotte's quiet journey turned into a global lesson. Other airlines took notice. New protocols were created. Some airlines launched their own kindness training. One even introduced a course called Respectful Service. It's designed specifically for handling moments like Charlotte's with empathy, patience, and care. Behind the scenes, cabin crews now have tips and guidelines for supporting young or high-profile passengers without singling them out. Internally, some even started calling them the Charlotte Guidelines. But the biggest change, people? Charlotte returned home stronger, more thoughtful. She'd seen the best and worst of public life, but remained graceful throughout. She never lashed out. She never asked for special treatment. She showed that strength doesn't always mean being loud. Sometimes it's staying kind in a moment that could easily make you bitter. Rebecca, too, turned a mistake into something meaningful. Her fall led to reflection, and her reflection led to change, not just for herself, but for others in her field. Charlotte's secret flight became more than a news story. It became a reminder of how every person matters, of how important it is to let kids make small choices, take small steps, and be treated with kindness along the way. One small decision led to big conversations. One quiet voice led to louder empathy. And one brave girl, hoping to go unnoticed in it, up making the whole world notice what really matters. If this story touched you, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and follow for more true stories that spark change and remind us what compassion can do.